So last week, we actually made it through. This, my battery's done.
Can't hear us now. Okay.
Batteries are dying. All right. Last week, we actually finished chapter 3. We're starting to cruise along. As the story goes along, it gets more into story, and it's a little bit more straightforward. But before we hop into chapter 4, I'll just ask, are there any lingering questions from Genesis 1, 2, or 3 before we hop into Genesis chapter 4? Anything lingering? Anything you wanted to ask? Well, hearing nothing, then I guess we will hop into Genesis chapter 4, where we see that, well, sin just keeps multiplying. So, my first paragraph actually is verses 1 and half of verse 2. So we'll read that. Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 and 2, first half. I'm reading from the NIV, so I'm just going to state that up front. I don't remember it being written this way in some other translations, but it's being blunt. So, Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, with the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man. Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. So, questions? What do you notice? What stands out to you?
So that first time.
With the help of the Lord. With the help of the Lord. That's an interesting phrase, isn't it? Most of the time, whenever we conceive or when people conceive in our day, do we think that God has anything to do with it? I mean, I guess it depends on who you're talking to. If it's a blessing, then they might blame God. If it's a curse, they might blame God too. But if it's just normal, then they might not. But that might be a curse right there.
That would be.
The reality is, you probably have known somebody who has struggled with infertility. And a person who struggles with infertility, when they finally get pregnant, they usually do say, this is a blessing. With God's help, this has happened. There's a sense in which we have to remember that even though it's a very physical human act to conceive a child, God plays a role in it. There's a reason why some children, they don't make it to full-term pregnancy. There's a reason why some people can't seem to get pregnant. And we don't always have good reasons for that, do we? So it is interesting that right here from the start, Eve claims it is with God's help. This is it. Anything else you notice, or anything that makes you want to ask? We have a whole stack of there.
Oh, what's your?
Yes, go ahead, Haley.
And what does the Adam stand for?
Adam stands for dirt man or earth born. What's your thought?
This is the correlation between the two. We needed a little reminder on the actual.
On the actual definition of Adam. Let's see. Anything else? Yes.
I'm thinking later, there's two different women that did not seem to conceive.
Hannah.
Hannah and one of the Jacob wives.
Rachel. both tend to deal with a level of infertility.
That did, and it did seem that God had a hand in each one of those two, but.
You know, I wonder how different our world would be if people had to apply and fill out an application to be granted access to have kids. How many people do you think would be given the clearance of having kids, and how many people do you think would not be given clearance?
Depends on who's making the rule.
Well, what if it's God making the rules?
Not lot has kids.
You think there'd be a lot less kids? Except that God is making the rules, isn't he? There is a sense, Les and I have had this conversation, and this version of the NIV makes it very clear what the human aspect of this is. He made love to his wife. They had sex. Sex does two things. It builds intimacy in a relationship, but mostly it leads towards having kids, right? Not always, not every time, but those are the two aspects of this. What you got, Don?
The word mostly, use the words mostly, I'm not sure where that.
Leads down.
I wasn't planning on getting into an anatomy discussion, okay? Okay, I think this is going to the shelf. We're just going to set this aside unless somebody else asks a question. Different question, Kaylee? I see you hesitant. Change our direction, please. Okay,
So, I was reading.
you're reading
Are we on verse 2 as well?
halfway through verse 2.
Okay, I think I needed.
Okay, let's just read the next paragraph. Let's get me out of this bind and let's read the second half of verse 2 through verse 5. Let's go for it. Now Abel kept flocks and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, and Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry and his face was downcast. So, what do you notice? What stands out to you? Go ahead.
Okay,
You got me out of the mind, so I'm gonna let you ask the first question.
naming people is extremely important.
Naming people is extremely important, correct?
It really speaks into their life. So Adam and Eve named Abel, which means breath, vapor, and meaningless. Is that what that means?
So,
Like, did they know what his life was going to be? Did they know in advance?
Yeah.
I think that notion, because I'm assuming you're reading this from a study Bible note.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you, I guess, yes.
You're reading from a study Bible note, which is fine.
Words are important.
A-B or A-B is a word that is part of what Abraham means. There's a sense in which Av means father, and El, of course, is God. So at its root, the literal name of Abel means God is my father. So that notion of with the help of God, I have conceived a child, she names her second child, God is his father. That being said, because of the fact that Abel's life is going to be cut short, he becomes synonymous with being cut short, with meaninglessness, with a vapor, with it didn't accomplish anything. Do you get what I'm saying? There's a difference between the root meaning of his name and his name becoming synonymous with something else. Does that make sense? I'm a history buff. I learned this from a movie, I'll admit that. But, the name that say his name is Mud, well, Mud was one of the guys that was involved in the conspiracy to kill Abraham Lincoln. And so he was, just happened to be one of the ones that was caught and tried. And so making someone, breaking their name through the mud is to publicly humiliate them in public. Well, it didn't mean that until a guy with the last name of Mud was put on trial. And he took the blunt for everyone else that participated in the conspiracy, because everybody else was killed. So he took the whole nation's anger in that moment. In that same sense, where we have now associated mud, not with dirt and farming and being life-giving, but in our culture, mud is a pejorative thing. It's dirty, it's filthy, it's not good. Do you get what I'm saying? And so there's a sense in which the Hebrew culture, Abel, which means God is my father, became synonymous with a waste, useless, short-lived. Do you get what I'm saying? And so there's a difference between what its meaning is and how it gets used. Does that make sense? Prime example. We're going to see this here in probably a couple of chapters. The name Nimrod. We call somebody a Nimrod. What are we saying with that? We're not saying something nice, are we? In our culture. And yet, in biblical culture, it means a mighty hunter. We're not meaning that when we call somebody a Nimrod. Its use has become different than what its meaning actually is. Does that work, Kaylee? Does that help? Okay. What else do you notice in this paragraph? Yes, yeah.
We're not given enough information.
We're not given enough
We
information.
don't
Okay.
know why God did not favor Cain's offering and why he did favor
So
Abel's
you're
offering.
saying we don't know?
Not there.
What information are we given? Let's chart this out. I get to right on the whiteboard. Cain. We have Cain and we have Abel, right? So what are we told about their two offerings? Who offers the first offering?
Cain.
Offers first.
And he just brings some of his brothers.
And it says some. It just says some of the produce, right? What, okay, what are we debating back there?
It says that Abel brought some of the best in it, but my version does not say that.
It just says some.
No, he's talking about Abel now.
Okay, Abel's,
Some, but Abel's in mine just says he brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. It doesn't say
he
the
offers second, but what does it say? Read that again.
Firstborn.
Firstborn.
Fat.
firstborn fat.
And the fat portions.
Which I know later on, when they have the sacrifices, that the fat was considered to be some of the best, but we don't know that yet.
So
I'll do a test one.
what yours says,
Test lambs.
some of the best lambs.
Mine says, the first one, right, is.
Best of firstborn lambs.
Oh, no. Where?
Okay. Do we get anything else about Cain's?
Firstborn of these flock. Fat portions.
Abel's, we get this. He offers second. He does it in response. But his, it mentions firstborn, it mentions the fat portions, some, what you got, Carol?
I think God explains it later. Without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. Cain brought fruit juice.
Cain brought fruit juice.
And Abel's brought blood. But they would not.
That they would not know is good.
What else do we notice? Yeah,
Well, I don't know if it's significant or not, but in my NIV, it says, in the course of time came God.
okay,
In the course of time, so.
somewhere along the way.
Scheduled, yeah. Makes it seem less important to me, says something.
Okay.
So we're not even, this is not something that is scheduled. Did God ask for this that we can tell? There is a sense in which both of these boys have come to the conclusion that they should give something to God. Cain offers first, but so you would not know this from the English translation, but this sum is the word that tends to be used for leftovers. This is anybody still harvesting zucchini right now? If there was a zucchini on the plant, would you want to eat it right now? Anybody who knows anything about zucchini, would you want to be eating zucchini? Probably not. Anybody want to be eating, corn's going to be too tough now for us to eat, right? There is a sense in which it's implying, even though Cain offers first, this sum is, he didn't choose the choice. He didn't choose the first of it. He chose what was left over. What he could spare.
Where do you find this?
It's implied in the Hebrew word that's there. I'm actually giving you some context to it. Because there's meant to be this versus this. It's a correlation between Abel brings the firstborn. Is there any guarantee of another one after the firstborn? No, there is no guarantee that an animal will have another kid of any kind. Now, they probably will, but you don't know that. And not only does he bring firstborn, but he brings what would traditionally, if you're wanting bacon, and of course we're not talking about bacon because this is the Jews and not, us today, but do you want the bacon from the really skinny hog or the fat hog?
Fat hog.
You want the fat hog, right? Do you want beef from the skinny cow or the plump cow? You want the plump cow. And the same is true for sheep. We don't really eat a lot of mutton and lamb in our culture. We eat some, but there is a sense in which we intrinsically know the fat portion means something. It's got more flavor. In some instances, it has more minerals and vitamins, and it's there. Even though my wife never likes to eat the fat, she knows that she at least needs to cook it with it and then cuts it off. So these two pieces, the fat and the first, are over against Cain's son. Do you see that? So we don't explicitly know why God rejects Cain's and accepts Abel's, but we can start to see why, can we not? Now, you're right. The reality is the book of Genesis, when it was written down at the same time that we get Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And in those books, we get told very clearly the fat portion with the Hebrew people is meant to go to God. The firstborn is meant to go to God. So even if they didn't know it, there's an implication in this story on how it is being told that clearly states that even though Cain comes first, in some ways you can almost paint a picture where Cain goes first on purpose because he's bringing something less than. And if God accepts his, then he's good. And then whatever Abel brings, well, he brought a second, so it doesn't really matter, God. I came in first. Isn't that the way we tend to want to think about stuff? Yes, Caleb.
Could this be a story of our heart postures? Like Cain clearly came and knowingly, like his heart knowingly knew what he was bringing to God.
There is a sense, yeah, you could build a case about the heart knowledge. Cain is not bringing his first produce. It doesn't say that. Cain is not bringing his best produce. It doesn't say that. Even though you may not have the knowledge that the word some that's being used here implies the less than, because of the way the story is being told, we're clearly being told Abel is bringing something better. Yes.
Is this possibly the first harvest, or did Cain bring stuff in years prior? But this is the first time that Abel was able to bring something.
So his question about, is this the first harvest? We don't know for certain. One, we know they have to be old enough. Do we know how old Cain and Abel are? Do we know how far apart they are? We don't know any of that stuff. We just know that they are old enough that they know that they are supposed to bring something to God. So bare minimum, they're probably at least 12 or 13 years old. Or somewhere in the age of accountability or older, correct? That being the case also, think about what we were told at the end of chapter 3. Adam was sent out of the garden and he had to work the ground. It was not something that was just going to produce for him. So more than likely, this isn't the first harvest.
So maybe Cain's brought his best earlier on.
He might have brought his best earlier on, except that it's just this beginning with it. It says, mine said, what does it say? In the course of time is what mine says. So, I doubt that this is the first produce, because otherwise they wouldn't have made it to this age, whatever they are. I also, we don't know if this is the first like his first opportunity to give. But I can see where you're trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, and we can build that in too. But is there any other details that are on here that we have from this section? Did I leave something out?
That's interesting what you said about the fat though. And the first and the fat. This is where it all goes back to, Stu, you have to stay in context. I guess if we'd have read ahead, we would have realized in Leviticus and then that that's an important part. Fat goes to God. We would have had that in if we'd have read.
For the people who were being told this story when it was written down, they were already told that the fat portion belonged to God.
They already knew it.
They already knew that. In some ways, this helps to explain that, in some ways. But the other side of it is, if you have to choose between the dried up hunk of meat or the hunk of meat that's got some fat and looks a little juicy, even if it's undercooked for you, you can cook it a little bit more, can you? Can you uncook shoe leather? Of course, we don't know that they're cooked either. But there's an intentional dichotomy here about Abel's seems to be his best. Abel's seems to be a gift that is honoring, while Cain's is, he's doing something, you almost get the sense he's doing it because he should do it.
Duty.
Out of a sense of duty. He's not giving his best, he's not giving the first, he's not giving his favorite, he's giving some. Does some imply your best? If you give some effort, then that typically, we use the word some to mean actually probably less than ideal, don't we? I mean, I'm just thinking about how we use language, right?
Well, when you tell somebody, I'll give you some.
I'll give you some. Yeah,
When you get what you don't want it anymore and give it to them.
in general, we tend to imply, when we use it, that language that way, I'll give you some. We're giving what we don't want.
So don't ask me for anything.
Now, we can still make the assumption that maybe in the past, Cain had given offerings before, but we don't know that, do we? This is what we've got. So in this alone, can we see why God might choose one gift as being better than the other? What else do you notice, or what other questions? Yes. Really good question. So how did they give it to God? Any thoughts?
They might have done it.
An altar.
Probably an altar. They knew God. Do you think God, when he kicked Adam and Eve out of the garden, stopped communicating with them? No. With everything we've seen up to this point, would God stop? He removes them from the garden so they don't grab from the tree of life. That's what it read, right? But nowhere in there does it say, okay, I'm done with them. They've messed up. I'm not going to talk to them ever again. Let them die in their misery.
He just shun them.
He doesn't shun them. He just removes them from the ability to be living forever in their broken and fallen state. And so it stands to reason that Cain and Abel knew God.
My text actually says brought to the Lord, not offered to the Lord, but brought.
So yeah, not just that, there's an implication in bringing it to the Lord, not just offering, but bringing it to the Lord. That language implies they had to know where to go. They knew where God was, and they were doing it on purpose. This wasn't just a haphazard. God, if you're out there, here. That's not what's being implied at all, is it? This is still very intentional. So my guess, Kinsey, is they knew how to get hold of God. They knew how to meet with God. I mean, I'm sure their parents probably told them how they walked with God and they talked with God. The sad reality is we tend to tell the story as if God, the moment that they get kicked out of the Garden of Eden, that God stops talking to humanity. It's done, it's over with, right? Sever the line, no more communication. That's not what we see, is it? The other thing that's interesting is they both do it at the same, there's a sense in which they're doing it together. It's almost like it's a group project. One rock. How do you judge group project, Sherry?
I always judge them individually.
Rarely does anybody get judged for what someone else does on their behalf. God absolutely judges them for what they did on their own, not what they did as compared to someone else. Isn't that the God that we see all throughout Scripture? When people start comparing themselves to someone else in Scripture, God usually shuts that off, doesn't he? Says, no, I'm just talking to you. What about you? Not what other people say, not what other people are doing, you. Our God is a personal God, and so there's a sense in which these offerings being brought were done in a very relational, personal way. Does it change how you act and what you do when you have to face the person and you give them something?
Absolutely.
Absolutely it does. We had a discussion, I'm thinking, Danny, when we were talking about the, mountain mission trek. Every church is this way, so please don't, I'm not just dogging on you guys, but it's amazing how we will send all kinds of stuff we don't want, no matter how broken or trashy it is. We'll put it in the truck because we don't see them. So we're just getting rid of stuff and we're hoping they'll do something good with it. But if you actually have to give that piece, that clothing, whatever, to the person that's going to use it, it changes whether or not you're gonna give something, doesn't it? Now, am I making sense here? So that notion of being brought implies that they knew where they were going and God was there to receive it, right? What else do we notice? Any other questions? Yeah.
No, I kind of missed a little bit, so I'm so sorry if we've already covered this, but I just missed it.
It's okay.
Was he physically still there then? He never, I mean, he was walking among the garden with them at one point. Did it ever say that he like left physically?
We never hear that God left us. It never says that.
Yeah.
Have you guys read that yet? I haven't seen it yet. No. He separates them from the garden, he separates them from the trees, but it doesn't say he's separating them from him. It's a good point. Anything else? Next paragraph? All right. Crack it open. Verses 6 and 7. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have it, but you must rule over it." So what do you think? What do you notice?
First thing you notice that God's talking to him person to person.
Yeah, God is talking to him person to person. I remember the first time I saw like a cartoon or something of this, and it was some voice, disembodied voice. But the way this is presented, it's almost like God is talking to him face to face.
Really is.
It's not a disconnected conversation.
Doesn't it seem that God is saying it's wrong, you did the wrong thing and you knew it? Is that?
Yeah, you could almost infer God is saying, look, you know you didn't do what you should have did. And if you do what's right, as if, and in saying that, if you do what's right, he's implying Cain knows what's right. He just chose not to do what was the best. He chose to do something less than. He chose to give God some, right? So there's an implication here. Cain knows that he made an active choice to do something that if it was accepted, it was just going to squeak by, right? He hoped it would be accepted. He thought it'd be accepted. But God's saying here, you knew. You knew.
Which it kind of implies that he's given a sacrifice in the past to know what was acceptable.
So to Justin's point, Melissa said it kind of implies that he's probably given a sacrifice in the past.
Or seen it.
Or at least seen it, maybe seen it, Adam and Eve give a sacrifice. He knows what a right sacrifice is, and God's clearly telling him, you know this was a wrong sacrifice. Jeff?
Yes, ask him why he is angry.
God asks him, why are you angry? That's a pretty pointed question, isn't it?
Maybe you wanted to say, I thought it was good, you didn't ask it.
Maybe God wanted Cain to say that. If Cain had said, I thought this was good, and I thought you would have accepted it, do you think God might have had a different conversation with him then?
Sounds to me like it says, if you will be accepted if you do what is right.
God very much implies that even if Cain had said, I thought this was good enough, God was willing to, this isn't you are wrong and it's done and it's over with. This is almost more of a coaching conversation, isn't it? Do you get that?
Yeah.
But to do the right thing, he's gonna have to go to his brother and get one of his lambs. And I think this, it sounds, you usually don't kill someone the first time you have a
Conflict.
So
problem. So it sounds like there may have been some jealousy there.
I'm gonna push back just a little bit, not with the last part of what you said, but with the first part. Have we had any declaration from God that there's a requirement to bring a lamb? Not yet. If we were to fast forward to the book of Leviticus, it says, bring what you can afford. If you are wealthy and can bring a calf, you bring a calf. If you're not quite as wealthy, maybe middle class, you bring a ram. If you can't afford a ram, you can bring a goat. If you can't afford a goat, you can bring 2 doves or 2 pigeons. If you can't afford 2 doves or 2 pigeons, you're allowed to bring a handful of flour. Now, we miss that part because for us, the sacrificial system kind of causes our eyes to glaze over, does it not? But if you read it, it very clearly says, God says, bring what you can afford, but bring your best. Bring the best of what you have to offer. If you're not a shepherd and you don't have sheep, you're not required to bring sheep. But if you are a farmer and you produce lots of wheat, you can't get by with a 5-pound bag of flour when you've produced 55,000 pounds of flour. Do you get what I'm saying? That's almost like the sum part. I'll bring you this little bitty piece as a representation, but I'm going to keep the rest of it for myself. But there is also the second half of what you said. There is a reality that if he wasn't willing to talk to God about why he wasn't accepted, he could have talked to Abel. Could he have not? But that's not what we get either, is it? How often, when we're told we didn't do what we should have done, do we say, oh, no, you're right, I should have done it better, and we try and do better? More often than not, what happens when we're told you didn't do what you should have done?
Wasn't me.
We make excuses, or we get angry, do we not? In the last chapter, they made excuses when they knew they had done wrong, but they tried to pass the buck. Adam blamed Eve, Eve blamed the serpent. Serpent didn't blame anybody, he just took it on himself. Crawled in the dust the rest of his life. And here, rather than blaming somebody, because they were probably born by mom and dad, don't blame other people. It's not going to work. God knows better, right? I mean, can you see the parents telling them this? We're living with the after effects. Don't blame somebody else. And God even warns him, I see the anger brewing in you. What else do you notice? Go for it, Justin.
So it says, but if you refuse to do what's right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door. What sin are they talking about?
So, this is, have we heard the word sin before, really? This is the first time we really get the word sin. We know that their taking of the fruit in the last chapter was sinful, right? But that's not the language that God uses in Genesis 3, is it? He just said it's wrong. Sin is something that you cannot fall into. It's something you have to willfully and planningly choose. And God is warning here. Is Cain in the wrong? In this conversation, what does it imply? What is God saying? Does God say that Cain has sinned yet?
No.
No. This really is. I imagine, Justin, I know you do a lot of coaching. Can you hear the coaching conversation in this?
Yeah, I was just wondering if it was referring to like, if Cain said, well, this is my best. And then he's like,
You can hear those kind of excuses, can't you?
yeah, like I didn't know if they were talking about lying or.
So I think that there is a reality here where God is saying there's a difference between making an error and choosing to sin. Do you get what I'm saying? You could almost get the sense that maybe he wondered, is this sacrifice going to be good enough? And God says, no, it's really not. But God doesn't call that a sin, does he? He's warning him that sin is what's about ready to take place.
God said he could see it though.
God said he could see it. It's coming. You need to turn around. This is going to end poorly if you don't stop this. Sin is the next step. How does that make you feel to know that God says that there is a difference between making a mistake and actually committing a sin? Does that make you feel better or worse?
I think
Mistakes
better.
not,
Better.
yeah, mistakes
Yeah.
not premeditated.
The mistake is not premeditated. Maybe he misjudged the goodness of his offering, and so it really was just an error. Maybe he hadn't fully comprehended the kind of offering God wanted, and maybe he had offered an offering in the past, and he offered the same thing this time, but maybe he had a better choice, and he chose not to give the better choice. We don't know that piece, but what's clear is this story that we just finished of them making an offering, even though Abel's was accepted and Cain's was not, God did not declare it a sin.
Well, you also have to remember that they only knew the difference between right and wrong
There's,
half a generation ago.
yeah, they've only had a half a generation to figure out what evil really is. We're still figuring this thing out a little bit. And I think that this is an important distinction for us as Christians, because John Wesley, when he was forming the Methodist movement, he asked this question every week in their covenant group level, not just the Sunday school class level, but the covenant group level. He asked the question, is there anything that you've done that you're not for sure whether or not it's sinful? Can you hear that question here? If Cain had gone to God and said, God, you didn't accept this. What's off? Why is this not good enough? What do you think God would have said? Do you think God would have sat down and explained why it wasn't good enough, why it wasn't accepted? Do you think God would have been glad to even have that kind of a conversation with him? I mean, if you look at the picture we've encountered with God, what was it you said after chapter 1 and 2, Kaylee? God's love is all over that place. And even in this conversation, is this not a loving conversation? Those of you who have kids or grandkids, have you ever had to have this kind of a hard conversation with your kids? And say, look, you're not wrong yet, but if you don't watch it, you're getting close. Now, yeah.
Well, it told us in verse 5 that Cain was very angry, and so it sounds like God is saying, repent, turn around and go a different direction.
Yeah, God is very clearly coming to Cain and saying, look, you're heading in the wrong direction, and I don't want you to get there. I mean, Cain's really being, how loving is God in this interchange?
He's being a father.
He is
being father.
He is ironically where Abel's name means God is my father. Cain is receiving the fatherly advice. Is he not? Does this paint this story in a different light already?
And I like it when they says, well, they, in this Bible, he says, I think God says to him, why are you furious? Like, let's
Why are you angry? Let's talk this out.
talk about it.
Yeah,
It's almost like he is thinking that God is saying he's no good rather than it's offering, like he's personalizing it, you know what I mean? And carrying it as like his identity, like
how
people's better.
often do we personalize bad news? God never once said Cain was the problem. God said the offering was the problem. But if Cain didn't watch it, he was going to let sin in, and then there would be a problem. God is not saying Cain's the problem. And the truth of the matter is, we as Christians need to understand this truth. We are not evil. No human being is evil. We can do evil, and we can allow evil to use us. And we can become agents of evil. But God never declared humanity as evil. In a couple chapters from now, we'll read how every thought of their heart was evil, but he's not calling them evil even then. In every single human being, God says there is an opportunity for redemption and choosing a better path. And right here, in this interchange, we get God laying both paths in front of Cain. Can you see that?
Kind of goes back to his own understanding. He's leaning instead of,
Yeah, that passage, do not lean on your own understanding. We have a Father who wants us to know the truth. So what I said, one of my assumptions about Bible study is the Holy Spirit wants to lead us into truth. We just have to slow down enough to ask the right questions to allow God to show us the truth. Up to this point, is Cain the villain? No.
No.
Sin is the villain that's coming.
he's wounded.
He's wounded, he's hurt, he's angry, there's a lot of things here, but he is not the bad guy yet.
His inner turmoil. He knows that he did not make.
His own inner turmoil, is he knows that he hasn't measured up. He knows to a certain degree he didn't do what was right, but rather than being mad at himself, he's turning his anger outward. Anything else you notice? Any other questions? Then let's read the next section. We'll read just 8. Yeah. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go out to the field. While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Yes,
That was a quick turnaround.
that was a very quick turnaround.
That was premeditated.
Premeditated in about 30 seconds, right? That's what it feels like for us, the way the story is being told. But we don't really know how long it is between the end of verse 7 and the beginning of verse 8, do we?
Isn't that the worst thing he could do, though?
He chose the absolute worst option here. He didn't turn his anger on himself. He didn't unleash his anger on God, who could handle it, because God even asks him why you're angry. He turns his anger on his brother. Anything else? Yeah, Jeff.
So if they came listened to all what God told him, he forewarned him what's going to happen, he just.
Cain just didn't listen. God gave him an out. God gave him a different path. And he gave in to the sin anyway. When did Cain choose? When did the sin enter? When Cain killed Abel? Or when Cain asked Abel to go out into the field?
Yeah.
When he asked. He had already made up his mind, right? He knew what he wanted to do. Does that not jive with what we hear from Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount? It's not enough to just say, Raka, I hate you. The moment you say that, you've already committed the murder in your heart.
And also, Adam and Eve.
Say that a little bit more.
So whenever they were in the garden, God talked to them before she ate the apple.
God gave them the rules before she ever ate. Yes.
But in that verse, I think there was like some sort of line of some sort of punishment before she actually took a bite of the apple, isn't there?
No, what we discussed last week was that her choosing to eat the apple was the sin, not the act of eating it or
Okay.
whatever the fruit was.
Yeah.
We've already claimed the sin happened when they had made the mental assent to do the thing. Doesn't matter what the thing is, does it? Choosing not to trust God. The act of not trusting God when they ate wasn't the sinful thing, it was the choosing not to trust God. The act of the murder was just an outflow of the sin that Cain had already allowed into his heart. Do you get what I'm saying? Any other thoughts or questions? Next verse. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where's your brother Abel?" Anybody feel a little bit of deja vu? Hey Adam, where are you at? Can you see God's motive? Does God come accusing? He points out the obvious, but does he accuse from the start? I don't know, he replied. Am I my brother's keeper? Isn't that such a snarky line?
That's a smart aleck teenager.
Look at this, he is, he's the oldest.
Why should I know that?
So, interesting point Melissa just brought up. When Genesis is written down, and this story is put in the form that we have it, they already have a culture where they know the oldest son is actually the one in charge of everybody else. That's their culture, is it not? We're going to see that all throughout the rest of this book. So there's a hint in maybe Cain is genuinely asking the question, am I really in charge of him? But to the audience that was receiving this when it was written down, we all know the answer. Well, yes, you're in charge. You know better. Right? We want to scream it. And of course, yeah, the sarcasm and the snark in how this is being handled, as if God doesn't know. Anything else? Yeah.
I don't know if we already said this because I had to go run and get a pencil. But God says, "Where is your brother?" He's trying to give him like the benefit of the doubt, like he did with Eve.
Oh, so she just brought up the fact that God's question for Cain gives him an opportunity to do the right thing. Just like God did with Adam and Eve. Where are you at?
Why are you hiding? Where is your brother? You can almost get the impression that if Cain had just told the truth, you think the outcome might have been different. Is there any sin that is unforgivable? Jesus says there's only one. And murder isn't it. What you got?
So can we say that this is a big one,
Okay, go for it. Swing.
that Abel never sinned?
Can we say that Abel never sinned?
Since you didn't know about it until the day before he, or some short amount of time before he was killed.
Boy.
That's scary to go to. We just better say no.
It's a safe bet because of Paul in the New Testament that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God to say that Abel probably did sin. But we genuinely don't know, do we? My guess is he probably did, but with a key distinction here that when he did, I'm guessing the character that we see in this little bitty sliver of bringing in his firstborn fattened portion, that when he made the mistakes, he, like David, we'll see down the road, always pushed into God. Okay, didn't get this right, God. What am I doing wrong? Because he wants to do the best. That's what we see here in the story, right? He brought his best. So there, on the one hand, we could make an assumption, because it says all have sinned, that he probably did. But the key difference seems to imply that he didn't live in his sin as Cain is living in his sin. Do you get that difference?
Yeah.
God says sin is an entity that is crouching at your door. It's waiting for an opportunity. It's looking for a chance to pounce. And Cain lets sin do its thing.
And it shows you how strong it is when he says you must master.
Yeah.
You must be the master of sin.
Anybody here figured sin out? Anybody got it conquered? Anybody at all? God warns us right here at the beginning. Sin is no easy thing. You've got to master it. People can spend their entire lives doing something and still not really master it, can they? I remind people, doctors practice medicine. They don't have it mastered. There's a reason we use that language, is there not? And God is saying, this is a lifelong process to keep sin on the outside of the door of your heart. But does God say that even if you let the sin into your heart, is God anywhere in here? Does God say he's going to cut you off? Not yet, has he? Let's read the next paragraph, 10 through 12. The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." What do you notice? Question, what you got, Kinsey?
My Bible says you now you're cursed and banished from the ground, which has swallowed your brother's blood.
Hers says, now you are cursed and banished from the ground, or from the ground.
Yeah.
Banished, driven.
Banished implies something a little harsher. Is God proclaiming judgment, or is God stating the facts?
Adam was told he would go back to dust.
Adam was told to go back to dust. Yeah.
Cain was just told he will not go back to the ground.
Cain was just told the ground isn't going to want to accept him. There is a sense in which the earth is a creature in this story. And when no one else stands in judgment, the earth will. Creation sees what happens and it responds to us. Yes.
It's almost like the earth is saying, "You're so wicked, I will not be a part of you."
She just said, it's almost as if the earth is saying, you're so wicked, I don't want you back. I know you came from me. I know you're made out of dirt. I don't want your dirt mixed with my dirt. Can you see this? That there is a line that Cain has crossed. And not only has he crossed the line in committing this act of murder, but he has lied about it. He has piled sin on top of sin. What else do you notice? Go for Jeff.
First time you didn't ask the question, you said, listen, the consequences.
Yeah, this time there's not necessarily a question per se. The what have you done is a question, but it's almost a question. It's like, you forced me to tell you what's going to happen now. It's a proclamation. It's not a judgment, it's a proclamation. Because you have done this, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. You are under a curse, driven from the ground. You know, Adam is told that he's going to fight the ground, and the ground is going to fight back with thorns and thistles, right? That's what we read last week. But now, the ground isn't even going to submit to that level to Cain moving forward. He's done. Strike three, he's out. Yeah, Dallas?
Question on, that brings up something else. I don't like to go back, but
Well, we need to go back, we need to go back.
Cain was, this is a curse.
This is a
Cain has
curse.
a curse on him. The serpent was cursed.
The serpent was cursed, and Cain is cursed.
We're not cursed.
Adam and Eve were not cursed. That is absolutely true.
That was a remedy of what's gonna happen to you,
But
or whatever you want.
That
to
was
say.
just the punishment.
it was the realities of their action.
Right.
What is pronounced on Adam and Eve is the consequences of their actions.
Right.
It's not God's curse. The serpent actually is cursed by God. And in this story, Cain is cursed by the ground. Do you see that? It's not really God producing the curse. It's the ground saying, you have forced me to drink blood, and because of that, you are cursed. I want nothing to do with you now.
How did Cain know if he attacked Abel, it was going to kill him? How did he have what was his conception of killing?
So the question is what was Cain's conception of killing? We really don't know up to this point. Because what do we know about the animal kingdom? Up to this point, God said the animals all ate the plants. There is no animal eating animal at this point that we know of. So there's a reality in which, to a certain degree, you can almost hear in God's interaction with Cain. If he did not fully understand the consequences of his attacking his brother, and he had just confessed it, he might have been in a different state. But from this point forward, we know attacking another person to cause them harm brings about this curse. Right? This point forward, does anybody have the benefit of the doubt? No. So we don't know what he did or did not know about attacking and killing and that kind of stuff. But what's clear is God says, you didn't fess up, you didn't ask, you didn't repent, therefore X.
So he's about 13 years older plus, so the first 13 years, they never killed an animal.
That we know of, he's at least 13 or older probably, so in his life up to this point, they've not killed animals. That we know of.
They have gotten the fat from the fat.
Well, okay, good point. So Melissa just brought up, how would they have known about the fat part of the animal? And we also have at the end of chapter 3 where God showed them how to make clothes. Right? That God killed the animal and made clothing of animal skins.
Because they sinned.
Because they
They
had
killed
sinned.
the animal for the sacrifice.
And God killed the animal for the sacrifice to cover their nakedness, their shame, their sin. So I guess they probably have seen murder. They've seen killing. Because I'm assuming Cain and Abel are not naked because their parents are not naked. Right? I mean, I'm making an assumption here because we really don't know, but they very clearly understood that they were naked and that wasn't a good thing. So there's probably very clearly an assumption. It's a safe assumption to make that they have had to kill animals in order to make coverings for themselves. But the act of killing his brother didn't necessarily condemn Cain. It was his refusal to admit it and to ask forgiveness. Do you get the difference? Because otherwise God wouldn't have asked these questions.
It started way back when he didn't admit that he brought a subpar sacrifice.
Yeah, his journey towards sin started all the way back when he brought a subpar sacrifice. And he didn't ask questions, and he didn't try to do better, and he didn't try and ask God, can I get some extra credit here? Let's bring my grade up. Instead, he just got angry about it. And when his brother apparently asked about the grade, then he said, let's go out in the field and I'll tell you about the grade. Crack.
So, but then for them to have had to do a sacrifice though, too, they had to have sinned before this to ask for forgiveness. So do you think they would have like?
So I'm gonna push pause. She's saying that we are making a correlation here that this is a sin sacrifice. Does that say that anywhere?
It doesn't say they had to sacrifice anything.
It says they are bringing an offering. There's a difference between bringing an offering and offering a sacrifice.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
I think Adam and Eve's was a sacrifice.
Adam and Eve at the end of chapter 3, God offered a sacrifice to cover their nakedness.
This was an offering.
This was an offering. 99 times out of 100, when we read forward, offerings are to say thank you to God for his provisions. Offerings are to beseech God and ask God questions. Want to know about this, so I'm bringing this to you. Offerings are about saying, you have blessed me, Lord, and I just cannot help but say thank you. There's a clear distinction between an offering, a sacrifice, and a tithe. Now, just so you know, and you wouldn't get this from English, that word, first fruits, is the same word as tithe. This notion of
firstborn is implying more of the tithe. Do you get what I'm saying with this? So the offering of first fruits, the offering of the firstborn, that is the tithe, that is saying, God, you have provided and I'm giving you your portion first. An offering is given above and beyond that to say thank you, God, for what you have done for me. Do you hear the difference? To be clear, this is Old Testament understanding of how to handle this, not New Testament. Tithes and offerings are an Old Testament understanding. They are a guide that we can use as Christians. They are a mandate for the Jewish people. Do you get the difference? And if you want to be technical, tithes and offerings is far easier because in the New Testament it says everything is God's. And you got to give an account for everything you have. So we like the tithe and offering a little bit easier. Just saying. Justin, you had something, we'll come back here.
So it says from now on, you'll be a homeless wanderer on the earth.
Yep.
So does that mean that Adam and Eve said, I don't want nothing to do with you, you're kicked out, you're a homeless man? Like I'm confused.
Let me ask you the question. Hope sitting across from you, sorry I'm bringing you into this. If one of your boys killed Hope, would you want anything to do with him?
Oh.
Would you have rather I asked you to be the one doing the killing? Okay, she would rather be the one doing the killing. Okay. To see if you die, if you're the one murdered, then you live forever. Everybody's like, oh, remember Abel? We loved Abel. He was so good.
That would happen.
That wouldn't happen. There is a sense you can paint a picture, and it's not hard to imagine this, that after this interchange between Cain and Abel, where Cain kills Abel, anybody want to be Eve when she gets told the news? Anybody want to be around Eve when she gets told the news? Mama bear coming out, right? Anybody want to be around Adam when he gets told the news? You know, that whole thing about dads and protecting their young. You get the picture that they are cast out, not just from the earth, but he is cast out from his family.
He is actually shunned.
He is actually shunned. This is probably the first story in scripture of a person being shunned. You have a follow-up, or is that just?
No, it makes me think that, they had a house.
They probably had a place, they had settled somewhere, and he is not going back there.
I would assume that he's not very old. He still lives with his parents.
We don't know how old he is, but it's probably safe to assume that he lived very close to his parents. He may have had a dwelling place of his own. He may have built a house beside him, but do you think he's going back to live beside mom and dad after this? Probably not.
I mean, would you want your child that just murdered your other child around your other children in case?
Yeah, let's think about this for just 3 seconds.
I mean, it doesn't mention other
If
children.
they did it once, will they do it again? Yes, Kaylee.
We're called to forgive.
We are called to forgive. Have we had any language from God about forgiving yet?
I did.
Kinda, but not explicitly. My guess is even if Adam and Eve would have welcomed him back, he made the decision he was never going back. The moment you cross that line, you have to know. When God tells you, look, I know what happened. The earth told me. Do you think Adam and Eve aren't going to know what happened? Do you think he could just hide it for the rest of his life, what he did? The options are pretty limited, aren't they?
So he probably left before they even did.
He may have left. It may have had to have been God who told Adam and Eve what happened. So they didn't just lose one son this day, they lost two. Lindsay?
He took my question.
He took your question? See, pre-made minds are thinking alike. Anything else?
Not just man, but the ground that swallowed the blood is also cursed.
The ground that swallowed the blood is also to a level cursed, yes. There's a sense in which that blood has tainted the ground.
I think it's because it's innocent blood.
Do I think it's because it was innocent blood? That's probably as good of an answer as any other I could think of. Because there's going to become a moment. Well, no, we've already seen it. We've already implied that there had to have been sacrifices of other animals in order to make clothes for Cain and Abel. So I think it's.
But animals aren't at the same level as humankind.
Animals are not at the same level, but they are to be stewarded. God still cares about the animals. I think it has everything to do with the intentionality of how the blood was spilled. Do you get what I'm saying with that?
Filled with anger.
It was spilled in anger. It wasn't spilled in sorrow. It wasn't spilled as, God, I'm sacrificing this animal in order, because I want to tell you I'm sorry, in order to make right. There is a sense in which if you read forward, and I hope that we do get there, great, we're going, it might take us about 12 years. But there is a sense in which God calls the Jewish people, the Hebrew people, to a life where the only time you ever eat meat is when you go to the tabernacle. They did not eat meat away from the tabernacle. Every animal that was killed, with the exception of maybe fish and quail, little things, but any animal of any size that was killed and eaten, it had to have been taken to the tabernacle. It even says that when you kill an antelope or a deer out in the wild, you bring it to the tabernacle. So the deer check-in station was at the tabernacle, and then it was cooked there and ate there. Everybody ate together there when it came to meat. What we would call, I guess you'd say more red meat kind of stuff. And so there's a sense in which God even limits how much meat the people of Israel eat when you read it close. And so there's an intentionality. This blood was filled with a negative and evil intention. Well, therefore the ground was cursed.
Also, though, it seems to me like, as far as I know, and that's not much, that the earth was not ever intended to see dead people, because until they messed with the fruit, they weren't supposed to die.
Until they messed with the fruit, they weren't supposed to die. And so you can actually paint a picture
First death.
where the human death was not meant to be contained within the earth. Think about that statement for just a second. The earth was never meant to contain human death. Is that not a foreshadowing of resurrection?
But God told Adam he was going to return to dust.
He said he would return to the dust, but that's not the way he intended for it to be. I think you can read between the lines here that I think resurrection was part of the plan from the very beginning. A resurrected post-sin reality. I've confused you, haven't I? Okay, you're furrowed.
Oh, well, of course it was the plan.
Well, we
That's
know,
what that was.
yeah, it was, of course it was part of the plan.
So the
That's what that
dominion
was.
over fruit trees is over.
There's a, ooh, yes, you can almost paint the picture here that humanity's dominion in the plants and the earth, it got hindered with Adam, it got killed with Cain. From this point forward, creation will not answer to humanity. We can force it, we can manipulate it, we can make it do all kinds of stuff, but it's not gonna listen to us. We can't just command it to do things anymore. We got about 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. Do you want me to read the next section, or do we need to finish up?
Fair question, is there more than 4 people at this time? Well, they said the fugitives, they'll kill me, who's they?
So let's read that next section then, because in order to answer your question, we gotta read that next section. 13 and 14. Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." So what's the answer to your question?
Mine reads a little bit different, like there's more people around.
It implies that there are more people there.
They come from.
Where'd they come from? What's our options?
Adam and Eve had lots more children.
Adam and Eve had lots more children. But the reality is, Cain did mess with the family, and the rest of the family isn't going to tolerate it no more. According to Jewish tradition, Adam and Eve had 25 kids. We don't actually have that written here anywhere, but according to tradition, they had 25 kids, one of which was murdered. So there were 24 or 12 sets.
Then they beat me.
And they beat you. What do you notice here about Cain's retort? Yeah, go ahead.
He doesn't want to take responsibility for his actions, just like his parents.
He doesn't want to take responsibility for his actions, just like his parents, and he twists God's words, doesn't he?
He's the victim.
He's the victim. Lord, you've given me too much. And yet, half of what he talks about, is that what God said? He twists God's words and makes them worse than what they actually are. Does he not?
God never told him he'd be hidden from his presence.
God never once told him, "You will be hidden from my presence." God never once told him, "I'm going to leave you." He inferred that and proclaimed that. He's now accusing God, is he not?
So if they basically had 2 sets of per kids, that means 2 females are without spouses, which means those kids are without fathers,
We don't
unless they
know
drive
for sure.
family out together.
What we see here, and I'm going to, and
Just do it.
no, we are out of time.
Just do it.
Just do it. I'm going to read this as an epilogue, and next week we will start again with verse 15, okay? I thought maybe we'd get through the whole chapter tonight, but it just didn't happen. So, 15, and I'm gonna read until I decide to stop, and then I'm gonna pray. But the Lord said to him, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden.
Cain made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad was the father of Mahaziel, and Mahaziel was the father of Methuselah, and Methuselah was the father of Lamech. And we're going to stop right there. So it's very clear that there were other people who were born. And because of what we know that, of what God says and Adam says, that Eve will be the mother of many peoples, they're all children of Adam and Eve. And with that, let's pray. Oh Lord, when we read your word, we understand just how far we have fallen from your intent for us. Lord, help us to remember that you never leave us. You never forsake us. Even when we are absolutely in the wrong, Lord, you still seek us out. May we never forget that truth. May we never give in to the lie that we are hidden from you, that we are separated from you in a way that cannot bring redemption. Lord, we read time and time again, you press in. So Lord, help us to bring an offering that's worthy of you. Help us to live lives that are worthy of you. And Lord, may we help this world to know that you love them, even in spite of what they have done. And you'll never stop chasing after them. And thank you for that truth that you never stop chasing after us. We thank you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. See you guys next week.
Thank you.